Status. My name is Douglas Gormans, and thank you for joining me again. This podcast is brought to you by the inspiration of Coral Johnson. Coral Johnson came up with a question, and a very important question, I should say, addressing how can God allow such atrocities such as rape or child abuse to exist in this world. And there are many other things, many horrible things that humans do to humans that we can't even imagine ourselves, but they do happen, or it seems like God allows these things to happen. And these atrocities are the main reasons why atheism has become prevalent in the United States and around the world. Because we are taught that God is supposed to be all-caring, omnipresent, all-loving, always watching out over us, being our protector. And yet somehow he allows all these evil things to exist in his world. I myself come from a dysfunctional, abusive childhood. So in a way, this does qualify me to bring up the subject and talk about the subject. I mean, if you've never lived in that environment, an abusive environment, then to the abusive child, then you're an outsider. You can't comprehend or understand what that child is going through. As much as these children go through, they develop similar traits. And two of the most prevalent traits that I'd like to mention, one is the ability to disengage from reality. It's easy for an abused child to disengage. And then another trait, the second trait that's the most common, is they have the ability to forget and blank out all the bad, all the negative, all the evil things that they have to endure. But somehow, in a really messed up way, this tends to work out in the favor of the abused person whenever they go on a spiritual search, a spiritual quest to find out truth and what truth is. So those that do go down the spiritual path find it easy if they get into the Eastern religions where meditation is prevalent, because detachment, what Buddha preaches as attachment and being detached from things, actually comes almost naturally to a child that had to spend almost 16 to 18 years of an environment that you couldn't even imagine living in. So detachment becomes easy for these people. And although detachment becomes natural, there are other traits where abused children have difficulties with growing up. They find it hard to stand on their own. They feel like they never learned the whole balance thing of life. And when they lean into Eastern religions, when I say Eastern religions, I mean all the religions that teach meditation. They also teach centering and grounding. In the Buddhist tradition, Buddha taught that there were 10 grounds called buhimas. Buhimi means ground. And Buddha said that if you can understand these 10 grounds, and if you practice these 10 grounds, then you will attain to the ultimate. The first buhimi is joyfulness. You have to be, Buddha has said you have to be joyful and full of joy in order to obtain the ultimate. Buddha has also said that if you are not joyous, your very sadness will function like a rock around your neck, and it will drag you down. People are not drowned by anything else but their own sadness and pessimistic outlooks. Buddha calls his first grounding paramita, joyfulness or joyousness for no reason at all. I feel it's very imperative to share with you these 10 groundings, because this is where the point where the abused child needs to learn to pick up and be able to move on so that they can become balanced and attain the ultimate to themselves. And the second grounding Buddha calls vimal, which means innocence, purity. Again, going back to the ability to disengage, this allows the abused child to know what it is to be innocent and pure. They never lose their innocence or their purity even though it seems to be stolen from them, because they have been able to detach themselves from the situation. This allows them to go above and beyond the negative, horrible things, the horrible acts that have been done to them. And the third grounding means to be filled with light, to be luminesce, to let your inner light shine. And again, as a child becomes an adult or learns to meditate, then finding an inner light actually becomes quite easy for them. The fourth grounding is known as arasamati, which means radiance, aliveness, and vitality. It means you have to be living life 100%, living it to the fullest. In fact, the ultimate can never really come to you unless you've experienced something 100% to its fullest capacity. And once this is done, then you get this feeling of accomplishment, of completion in your life, where you get to a point where you desire no future. Like if you live something to its fullest, then you understand that what I'm saying, that there's no desire to repeat that experience because that was the ultimate experience. And this is what Buddha means by arasamati. The fifth grounding is suraja, which means adventurousness, courageousness, a challenge, welcomingness whenever there is a challenge. So there exist all these challenges in life. To me, it's like finding a better wave, or a challenging situation on a wave, or in skydiving, trying a new maneuver, or being with more people in the sky and challenging yourself to new maneuvers. But that's what the fifth means, to be adventuresome, and go for it. Because again, these things are going to bring you to the ultimate reality. And on top of the fifth of being courageous, the sixth is, I'm not sure the pronunciation of this, but it's abhimukhi, which means immediateness or face-to-faceness, encountering that which is, being not worrying about the past or the future, but facing the truth as it comes, moment by moment. I'd also like to say that it's facing life with awareness, not rehearsing or trying to prepare for whatever's going on, but just being spontaneous and responding to people's comments or people's views towards you. So always try to be alert and aware rather than trying to prepare and rehearse for any situation that comes your way. You'll regret less being spontaneous, because when you're spontaneous, only the truth can come out. Only your true feelings can come out. It can't be a lie, because lies are usually rehearsed. Which leads us to the next grounding, which Buddha has called dharanga, which means far-goingness, accepting the call of the beyond. The mystic Osho writes in his book, The Buddha Said, about dharanga. He says that it's like the real is like an abyss, because the real is a great emptiness. It is a vast sky with no boundaries. And Buddha says, dharangma, be available to the beyond. Never remain confined by the boundaries or to the boundaries. Always trespass the boundaries. Make the boundaries if you need them, but always remember you have to be able to step out. So never make imprisonments for yourself. So always have the courage to accept the unknown and to face the unknown. This is what Buddha means by dharangma. Which leads us to the eighth grounding, and that is called achala. Achala means centering, grounding, immovability. We learn these things, like when I was studying Aikido, to be grounded and centered, and it's not just a physical centering, but there's also a spiritual centering. It's easily for a child to be moved from their center just by shouting at them. They could easily be thrown off center. So an abused child, this is the most important of the groundings that I can mention, is that you have to learn to be so grounded and immovable that nobody else can hurt you. And that feeling of fear will eventually disappear through the eighth grounding. Then the ninth grounding is called sadhumati, which means intelligence, awareness, and mindfulness. Buddha is not saying to become an intellectual when he says use your intelligence. Intelligence happens out of awareness, out of spontaneity itself. These are actions that happen without preparation, which we've just talked about. And when all these 9 groundings come together, they lead to the 10th grounding. And the 10th grounding is that you have to be sharing. You have to be a cloud of love and truth and gracefulness. Because when all these other 9 groundings come together, you reach the ultimate truth. And when you reach the ultimate truth, then you have to share it. Without sharing it, if you try to hoard it, then you have less and less yourself. But that's the universal law of love, is that the more you share, the more you get. So these are the 10 groundings that I wanted to share with you. And these 10 groundings, I hope that as many children who have suffered through things that I've had to suffer through attain or experience, they transform you from being like a caterpillar into a butterfly. That's the only way I can describe it or explain it. But a transformation does happen. I mean, it doesn't happen to every child that becomes spiritual, but if the child goes through these 10 groundings, then the possibility is a lot more than a child who was never abused, because it's like the contrast of a blackboard with white chalk. The darker the black, the more the white stands out. So yes, it is easier for a child who has been abused to experience truth. And we're not going to say things like we believe there's a God or that God exists. These things you have to find out for yourselves. There are no fairy tales that are going to save us from all hell and damnation, as the Bible likes to infer. But you owe it to yourself to go through the 10 groundings and meditate and experience truth for yourself. Only then will you know, and you won't know before. So I ask you to go through these things because I'm not going to ask you to believe that God exists. In fact, I would probably say an answer to you if you asked me, does God exist? I would have to say no. That's what Buddha would have said too. No, God does not exist. But that does not mean that something exists, that there is something. And that Buddha called godliness, that each of us have a certain godliness. We also have the other extreme in us too. There are 2 extremes. We can either be godly or we could be evil. The choice is ours. And the more of us who choose the godliness, the godly state of being, then the less evil will exist in this world. And I'm sure there are going to be people that misinterpret the words that I'm trying to say with this podcast. But what I'm trying to get across is that no, there's no justification for the evils that exist in this world. And anyone that can say anything like you'll have a great afterlife if you suffer like hell, they're a little twisted. They're a little wrong. And that's why I have leaned towards the Eastern religions and Buddha's way and many other forms of transcendentalism. But anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope this was inspirational, and I hope you learn and gain something through my words and through these teachings. Once again, thank you for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummins. I have other videos out on YouTube that I've put out. Please check them out. Again, all just like podcasts that are teaching wisdom and helping us gain insight where we can better our lives through them or through it. Thank you. Thank you again for joining me. Bye-bye.